Well, as I mentioned before, measurement is very much key to what Total Metrics does, and one of the key learnings that will come out of today's presentation is that it is a prerequisite for an organisation to achieve excellence. The other thing that we're going to be talking about is some new methodologies and techniques that were originally developed in the UK but have been significantly enhanced over the last 8 years or so by our state government. And that is new strategies to manage change within an organisation and also to optimise IT investment to get the greatest return on that investment. And as measurement consultants, and if we've got any of people that specialise in measurement in our audience, we're going to talk about a broader base for measurement consultants rather than just measuring productivity measures of function points and effort and defects that I mentioned before, but ways to use those measurement skills to assist organisations with monitoring the benefits of an IT investment. The corporate world has spent the last 60 years distilling the essence of what makes an organisation successful. And not only successful from a financial perspective, but one that has continual growth and improvement whilst remaining robust and resilient. A number of frameworks have been put in place to distill what these essential components are. But this diagram that I'm putting up is the distillation of a lot of those business frameworks. It comes down to 5 components. The first one being one that is the key to achieving excellence, and that's the shared strategic direction. In order for an organisation to achieve excellence, the management have to have a very strong vision of where that organisation is going and communicate that vision to all components of the business so that every decision that's made, every investment that is made is towards that strategic direction. The second component, the second component in achieving excellence is that there is a design for process improvement, and that the organisation is continually improving and continually identifying processes and monitoring those processes and identifying where the weaknesses are and strengths and improving them. Now, in order to identify where the weaknesses and strengths are, they need to have some measurement. And it's really only in the last 10 years that performance measurement and feedback has been seen essential to an organisation achieving excellence. So that is an iterative process of identifying strategic direction, having processes that enable that organisation to go in that direction, and that performance and measurement feedback. Now, the 2 other key components to achieving excellence is the concept of the organisation capturing knowledge and being able to leverage that knowledge. In the past, the intellectual property for an organisation tends to reside in its people, but today with technology, that intellectual property is now being captured within technology, and that intellectual property is seen as being able to improve the assets of the organisation in its potential to actually earn money for the organisation, and the organisation is valued on their IP. The last component, and this is the one that we're going to be concentrating on in this presentation, so the last component for an organisation to achieve excellence is the prerequisite for leadership and management of change. And this separates the good from the great in organisations. It tests the organisation's resilience, its ability to adjust to the changing environment and be successful. But adjustment means change, and all changes implemented need to be appropriate and aligned to the strategic direction that the organisation has identified. It needs to provide the best value in terms of the organisational growth and money invested. As the global financial crisis has started to bite, and for all countries around the world, this has been a real issue in the last 2 to 3 years, is that we need to really ensure that every investment in our organisation is one that is aligned to our strategic direction, and that we prioritise our changes to ensure that those investments are aligned to our strategic direction, and every decision we make optimises that return on investment. This means we need to streamline the investment decisions, making the process to spend our limited budgets where we'll get the most return. Typically, in the past, when budgets weren't so tight, when our different departments within our organisation would get budget, they would develop a business case in order to get money from management. And those business cases were prolific. But they often weren't aligned to what the strategic direction of the organisation were. When people decided that they wanted to purchase software, they tended to build a business case that justified the purchase of that software. Rarely did they stand back and actually look at the organisation and identify what the key problems were in that organisation, and have a framework by which they independently identified what the solutions needed to be to fix that problem, and only then arrive at the point that software may or may not be the solution to that problem. They usually started with the solution and then developed the business case accordingly. So business cases, as budgets tightened, people started to insist that every investment was associated with a business case. But those business cases are very costly and time-consuming to create, and they tend to focus on improving business processes at a tactical level rather than a strategic level. And when organisations only have a limited budget, only a few of those business cases can actually get approved and receive their budget. So a lot of money is wasted in developing business cases that will never be funded. It's interesting when you see how much trouble people go to in a business case to actually establish the benefits that they believe will be achieved by that business case. They put a really good spin on the story and identify a whole heap of benefits, but rarely are those benefits ever monitored after the investment is made. They tend to only ever exist in that business case. In fact, there was a survey done in Australia in 2006 of the key reasons for software project failure, of why the investment in the software didn't achieve what it was supposed to achieve. And the two things that they found that are aligned to what we're talking about today was that the vision of the project's business goal were not shared amongst the project personnel, particularly the project manager. And the other one was that the 86% of projects had a business case, but 60% ignored it. So it actually sort of indicates that business cases are written merely to get money and not for the purposes for which they should be written, which is to really ensure that they align to an organisation's strategic direction and that they are in fact solving a problem and providing real benefits to the organisation. The problems that I'm talking about were experienced here in our Victorian government, and they took a very innovative approach. They were finding that every year when the budget cycle would come up, they would be inundated with business cases from